It was such a broke time, but I always made it look good. Like I did a lot of traveling within West Africa, specifically South Africa a little bit. I was coming home making sales, so I was always working, but it was one of those things where I created a job for myself, not built a company. I knew that being in Liberia, I wasn't ever going to find a community that was expansive enough to grow a company to what I wanted it to be.
What's going on, millionaires? It's your guy Kai Speaks back for another episode of the $1 Million Mind podcast. Here with my co-host Heavy House Jazz. Jazz, how you feeling?
Feeling great. Like I said, blessed.
Blessed by the best, never stressed by the rest. Let's get it. I'm so excited about this conversation and the guests that we have in the building today because we're just it's like all connected. The things we was just talking about before this guest got in the building, you guys were just kind of like chatting it up, and the same things were coming up in that conversation. And this is a young woman that has a lot going for herself. She has an amazing storefront here in Atlanta that is doing very well. She's a businesswoman, like you always like to say, Jazz. I'm a businesswoman. I do real business. This woman is doing real business.
Yeah.
From the warehouse to providing opportunities for other women, you name it, all across the board. But one thing that stuck out to me was also like how she gets her family involved in it all as well. From the series that I've seen you guys doing, and then I kind of just look at some of the conversations. It seems like your mom is pretty involved in the business as well. Yeah. So I would love to talk about that, like family business, legacy. Yeah. I think is where the conversation will go. But without further ado, let me pass the mic and the camera off to our guest. We have Arshel, the owner and CEO of Bombshell. Arshel, it's a pleasure having you in the building.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, we are happy to have you.
Yeah, so let's start off right there with Bombshell, the start of Bombshell. What did that look like? How did did you start it by yourself? Did you start it with your mom? Like, what was the birth of Bombshell?
Well, so Bombshell, basically I was living in Liberia at the time. Ebola. I opened a store when I moved back to Liberia. I had a partner for the store.
Okay.
The store had to close because of Ebola. And I came back to the States and I looked around and I was like, okay, you opened something, it was cool, but how do you create a career from this? Because apparently Liberia is very fragile. They fought war and then there was Ebola. So I just didn't trust the economy enough to say a store that only serves people in Liberia was going to be enough to keep me growing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. To keep money in my pocket, to keep me able to eat. So I came here and I realized I needed to own my manufacturing. That was really the only way that I could grow and scale. Then I could supply people in all sorts of different places. So I opened the factory. I raised money on Kickstarter. I opened a factory that at the time we hired only women. It was 2016. And we still have half the staff that we started with. So, wow. We've been able to provide a really great opportunity for these women to be the breadwinners in their lives and do things with their family, fund education, buy property, things that they never would have been able to do without this factory being there. So I'm just grateful that we've been able to do that. And I'm grateful that we've been able to continue to find customers who want to buy our clothes, because that goes directly to helping the women continue on building their lives.
Right, and the warehouse is in Liberia. Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, paint the picture for our audience. Like, what time? Because we all heard Ebola, right? I remember hearing that Ebola was a thing and it was going. What time was this around, and to what extent did it really affect like the communities in which you serve? Like, was this similar to what we were dealing with in 2020 with COVID?
So Ebola definitely prepared me for COVID. It was 10 years ago, actually, that Ebola was a thing. And so I knew, so the difference with Ebola is if somebody got it, very few people who got it survived.
Oh, wow.
So with COVID.
So the mortality rate was a lot higher.
Yeah. You could also see Ebola. Like, unless somebody had visible symptoms, they didn't have it. COVID was a silent assassin. But so for me, the reason that I was able to open my store at Ponce during COVID was because I knew that people start to get fatigue about, masking up and staying in. I know you start to get tired of following the health rules at about 4 months. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I don't mind opening this store when all the other stores were closed because they didn't know what to expect, but I kind of knew what to expect.
Wow.
So it prepared me for that.
So, bang, COVID really hit Atlanta, I would say, probably like late January, early February 2020. You said about 4 months. So you opened up Bombshell in Ponce
I opened up Bombshell in October. So I would say...
of 2020. Okay.
But I started the negotiations basically in May when George Floyd was killed. That was when everybody was like, where are your black businesses? Where are your black businesses to all these different places? And I had been trying to have a meeting at Ponce with a particular store inside there. And they just kept ignoring me up to that point. So then once I saw on Ponce's Instagram comments that people were like, y'all don't have any black owned businesses. I went that day and sent an email to somebody in their management and was like, can we have a meeting? And I had a meeting with them the next day and they agreed the next day it took a week for them to say, yes, you could open your store because there were so many stores that were closing. And then this had been a hot topic.
Right.
So now the second floor is majority black owned stores, which we're grateful for. A rising tide lifts all ships. But back then it was me and one other girl.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I knew I was like, let me act fast because somebody else could get their stuff together and they could have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Timing
I
is
opened in
everything.
October.
Timing is everything. In October 2020, I do remember that's when people were really getting tired of like the isolation and being inside. I even started, that's October 2020 is literally when I started doing wholesaling and partnering
November 2020 is right when I moved out here.
Wow, yeah. So a lot was
very
shifting
time.
For
the world and the doers and they were doing.
And it was also a very impulsive time too because of how tired people were of being.
We were in Atlanta, so were people really isolating? You know what I mean?
I was in California.
Okay,
People were really isolating.
In California, they isolated for like 2 years.
Man, it was a real thing. Let's not talk about that.
So, but for Atlanta, I was like, okay. By Cinco de Mayo, I was like, oh, okay, they're not sitting at home. So I have no reason not to open a store right now because people will come. Yeah. And they came.
They did. It was alive out here as opposed to, California, we were really shut down. Everybody had a mask on. I was in the hospital. I was fighting for people, pregnant women. It was wild. Yeah. And Atlanta was like, hey, we're still out here.
And I want to get a little political, but not too political for a minute, because like when I think of the differences between California and Georgia, California is a very liberal state, right? And even though Atlanta, with the population being mostly black and mostly blacks are typically, they consider themselves liberals. I would say that Georgia being a conservative state and the state laws really impacted how you was moving during this time. Yeah. Whether you was liberal or conservative personally, everybody was tired of being inside for the most part. Yeah. And
this showed you that, guess what? California is not liberal.
And what do you mean by that?
We're fake liberals.
Got you.
Okay. That's why I had to go. I'm not that.
I feel what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I'm saying as far as the state though. Yeah. Like the people who actually govern the state.
Yes. It showed you like they were ahead of all of our rules and regulations. That's what allowed all of you guys to be outside. Right? It didn't allow us to be outside. We had a lot of regulations. Yeah. And we're overly regulated. The reason why the big migration happened. Places that were overly regulated, where did they come? This is
and now how does that affect business too? Like, because I know for you,
it being probably able flourished.
A
little bit more.
Not necessarily because look, Ponce is no matter what on any given day, you're gonna get people who are visiting from out of town. You're never gonna get locals. So, but that was before also. So that didn't really. I don't think that really changed the demographic of the Ponce customer. I definitely wish that we had been more cautious as a community. It was weird to me that during the middle of the pandemic, I'm still having to remind people who come into the store to put their mask on. Like they be looking away, acting like I'm not going to see. Hi, I see you. Like, we had to fight people. People coming in.
I get it.
The
in
first
regards
day
to
of
that.
vaccines being released, and we were like, excuse me, could you put your mask on? Everybody's not vaccinated yet. And they were like, well, you just lost business. So I think that if anything, it emboldened them to really just be rude and to not care about each other. And I'm coming from Africa, so I'm not used to that.
I get it.
We're we care about our neighbors. We would die for our neighbors. We'll do anything to make sure to take care of each other. So definitely COVID made me look at Americans in a very different way.
Can I say, this is so crazy because all three of our perspectives are completely different.
Completely different.
You are in a place where, hey, love thy neighbor is really happening. I'm in a place where in California where it's like, you think it's like love thy neighbor. And we're like, everybody put a mask on. Yes, yes, yes. He's over here in Atlanta. And it's like, nobody has to put a mask on.
Yeah, it was just totally like, this is fake.
Okay, but literally I'm fighting for the mask. So we're demanded to put the mask on in California. But guess what? We have no mask and they're not giving it up. And they're like, but you got to keep going out there.
Yeah.
This is wild.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it definitely made me look at people crazy. I mean, looking at people, seeing people pull the mask out of their pocket slowly and look around and see if I'm not there and then put it back in. And then I'm like, hey, excuse me, no, you got to put it on. Like, you don't
it's
know.
like the effort to fake it, you might as well just go through it.
Yeah. So I
You
was
have
like,
the
wow.
intention to be good.
Definitely.
Just be good.
Yeah.
Zombie apocalypse happens here. Like, no, people are killing you for your Campbell soup. Like, they don't. That's what that showed me. I was like,
You get it. It
I
really
would go
showed
back
the conscience.
to West Africa if there's a zombie apocalypse.
Now, are you from Liberia?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
you
lived there for
Nice.
10 years.
Got you.
In the time of I graduated school and then I lived there and I just moved back to open this store. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, what did because you said 10 years ago during like around Ebola, you already had the store in Liberia.
Yeah.
So 10 years, really maybe like 8 years between that time of Ebola really, at its peak to you being in Atlanta 2020, what was going on in between that time? Like what did that 8 to 10 years look like?
For me, I had my store. I reopened my store. I opened my factory. I was trying to get pieces out. It was such a broke time, but I always made it look good. Like I did a lot of traveling within West Africa, specifically South Africa a little bit. I was coming home, making sales. So I was always working, but it was one of those things where I created a job for myself, not built a company.
I understand.
So there's a difference.
There's
a big difference.
Yeah. But towards the end of that time, I had been trying to figure out what was my plan for coming back to the States, just because I knew I needed to be near a bigger market. You know what I mean? Yeah. I needed to be near a bigger market. And then as you see these things grow, like you see African fashion growing, you see Black people in fashion growing, all these things. I've always had this thing in my head where I'm not one of the cool kids. I've never been one of the cool kids. I wasn't one of the cool kids in school. I'm still not one of the cool kids now. Like, you'll see all the nice fashion brunches with all the Black girls. I don't get invited. Like, it's fine, right? But it's something that I'm used to. But I knew that being in Liberia, I wasn't ever going to find a community that was expansive enough to grow a company to what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, you
Do you know
couldn't
what I'm
find
saying?
that person that could consume enough.
Right.
They
There weren't
understand.
enough clients. People get mad over.
I wonder what's the economical state
That's
of
very hard.
Liberia. Well, let's go there.
Liberia is consistently a bottom 10 poorest country in the world. I hate to say that because I love it. Liberia was settled by freed African slaves. There were Africans that were already there when the Liberians went there, when the freed slaves went to Liberia and settled it. So I always like to make that a point because in that way, our history is so extremely unique. We are connected to African Americans here. So my ancestors, I could trace my genealogy to slaves from Tennessee, Virginia, Barbados that decided to go back to Liberia and make Africa home. So Liberia used to be a shining star for independence in Africa. And then we had a war, and then we had another war. and then we had Ebola. So it's been hard for us. So there are not a lot of potential clients that want to even spend $30 on a handmade dress. people have complained to me about everything, and it starts to make you question your own self-worth.
And
Right.
When that many people tell you this isn't worth that, and you feel like, well, why not? You know, it starts to make you question, like, am I actually worth that? It made it very hard for
That
me to
is
price things
so-
appropriately here.
That is so. This is really good. I'm so happy that we have our show here because people need to understand this, and we don't really get enough time, me included, to actually study our history and even where it is up to today. To hear that, hey, Liberia is a staple for the African American or African community, and where they went back to be free, but yet we've been through so many wars after that, and Ebola. And they don't want to put the value on it. It's so much value there.
Yeah.
And they keep ripping it apart.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I was just in Mexico and they're charging way more than that for a dress.
And a lot of those dresses are
especially
coming from
Tulum.
China.
China. That's
They're coming from China, but they're
It's-
being sold there. And so, but no problem. Those same people will come to Bombshell and be like, oh my gosh, $200 for this dress. But you'll buy the one in Mexico.
You
that's-
will in Tulum right there. You'll buy a hat for $200.
Yeah. And it
Or you'll
made
spend
a
more
charge.
than that on a quote unquote name brand, you know,
Yeah.
shirt
Oh my
or
gosh.
dress.
Don't even get me started because I don't know if y'all watch which there was an award show the other day and this actress was wearing a Louis Vuitton dress and the zipper broke in the back. And she's like getting her award and the zipper broke on her dress.
Wow.
And so she's there. So that I don't use zippers in any of my styles because I had been told so many times that the quality of the clothing in Liberia and the quality of the zippers and what we've been blaming ourselves, saying that these things, oh my gosh, see, and now look, Louis Vuitton even has a broken zipper every now and
But
then.
we're harder on ourselves than anyone
Yeah.
else. And that's the reason why they're used to treating us like that because we treat ourselves and each
Right.
other like that.
If a zipper that I put on something would break, it would have been not just like, oh, this zipper broke. It would have been, this is why I don't shop black businesses.
I understand.
Oh, the African quality stuff is not as good. And oh, see, this is why, because
We
you
don't
didn't
give
go to fashion
ourselves
school.
grace,
There's no grace.
and no one else.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're supposed to grow in grace, not fall from
Exactly.
grace. So since you have come and repivoted to the States as well as still being in Liberia, have you found that your business has been able to thrive a little bit more?
For sure.
Okay.
There's definitely, we're doing numbers now that we wouldn't be able to do in
Love to hear
Liberia,
that. I
which
love
I'm grateful for. We are still not necessarily doing the numbers that I expected we would be doing by now. Like we still have not, transparently speaking, we still have not hit 1 million in a year.
Understood.
We had gotten so close. And then it's like January 1st comes around and I was like, I got to start all over, you know, which is fine. I'm
That's
very
okay.
grateful. We still not the cool girls. I'm still waiting on like my red carpet or paparazzi moments. Do you know what I mean? But then we also have a really special way for making like real plain white girls from Kansas City feel really good about their size 16 bodies.
I get
so
it.
it's like almost like what's the big goal here?
The
right?
journey.
Yeah.
I mean, look at you. When you sit there and you say, what are you really doing? Look at
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. Oh
Some
my gosh.
people can't do what they love for that long. And when I look at you and you say you turned it into a job, kind of, a lot of times we say, can we love what we do every day? And I get you might want a little bit more time, but it seems like you love what you do every day.
I do. I really do because I know that I can connect a 16-year-old chocolate high school girl who just got a beautiful African dress in Pond City Market. I can connect her and that dress to a woman in Liberia who, you know, really put her all into making this garment so that she could then take that money and feed her, whether it be her little brother or feed her child. So I can make that connection.
I love that.
I stand there in the middle and I can make that connection. And so for that, it's worth all the Beyonce looks in the world. It really is.
That's trading.
Yeah.
That's modern day trading.
Yes. Yes.
You know, from
Yes.
ships to planes and trains.
It really is.
It took none of that almost to create it, but you get what I mean.
I am curious though, because
Yeah.
you mentioned how like you would hear it from your own people in Liberia on
Yeah.
how this wouldn't be worth $30 or 40,
Right.
50, whatever it might be. To what was the work you've done internally to see that I am worth this much, especially transition to Atlanta where
Yeah.
people are open into spending easily $30 on a dress, $40, $50 on a dress.
Okay. So the dress, we'll talk about the handkerchief dress. It's my signature dress. We have a big picture of it on all different types of body types of women when you first walk into our store. That dress in Liberia is $30. Here, we're able to sell it at $168.
Okay.
So for sure, we don't sell. I just never felt like I should have to sell dresses for less than $100. That's just where I am now. I just don't feel like I should have to sell dresses for less than $100. And it did take a minute for me to get there because especially when I'm opening this very African store in Pond City Market, if there are days that are slower and then people aren't buying something, I'm like, it's me. They don't want this. But my very first pop-up that I ever had in Atlanta, I designed my first dress and it's called the Vivian. We still sell it at Ponce and it has this great butterfly style. And I said, okay, I'm only going to make 10 of it and I'm going to sell it for $30. This was 2010. And I was so scared that it was too African looking, right? And that was the first dress that sold out at that party.
Wow.
So I learned
they love us. They've been copying us since the end of time. We put the infrastructure.
It was black people at that. It was largely black clients. So what that really taught me was like, do the things that you like, make the things that you like, because there might be other people that like what you like, and like trust that. Even though I've always been the weird girl, the uncool girl, you'd be surprised at how many people like what you like. So that was what I took away.
Because you're an individual, and everybody else is trying to be alike. I get it.
Well, I'm grateful that people are starting to want to incorporate some of the Africanness into being alike, right? If let's say that people want to do the same thing, like I'm glad now that people are considering African as being part of what they want to do. You know, nobody was playing Afro beats before, any of the African music, and so now it's like, okay, now everybody who has a friend who's African is asking for a jollof rice. And now there's clothing. And so it's like none of this was happening when I was growing up in East Cobb or Gwinnett outside of Atlanta.
So
like,
we're embracing you see us embracing ourselves again.
So weird. And now y'all are excited to partake. And I'm excited to welcome you in.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because I want to know about the influence of the music too, because 2020, 2021, I really feel like Afro beats really took especially in the black cities, Atlanta, New York, you know, a lot of different black cities around started listening to African, Afro beats a lot heavily. Do you feel like that also played a part as well as like just making people want to play the part, look the part?
I think there are more Africans who are not shy to say they're African around. And so I also think really, because I've been listening to Afro beats for forever, and the production value of the music has gotten better. All of it has just gotten better. So now it's like, it's hard for you to not want to like it, right? A rising tide lifts all ships. I will say that. So I'm not going to say no, the music had nothing to do with this. I'm grateful now that I have a store where I can play Afro beats all day long, you know? But what I will say is, definitely for me, when I was younger, I got called every African booty scratcher. I was not dark skinned enough to be African. There were so many things that were kind of challenging my Africanness, right?
Wow. And
so now I feel like because there are so many like second generation kids here in the States, or so many of us are able to travel to Africa is cheaper. We're also making it more exciting to go to West Africa. So I think as the knowledge shares and spreads, people are more interested in everything. Yeah.
Do you feel like from being from Liberia and then becoming to the States, I've always had this sense of Africa doesn't want us anymore, right? Being that we're African American. Do you feel like over time, over this span of you being in Liberia to now being here, that you see that things are changing a little bit? Even like how Ghana is saying, hey, African Americans can come here.
So I don't think we've ever not wanted you. Okay. And I say that my grandmother's African American. The rest of my family's African. So I feel like I'm a blend of both, right? So from my perspective, I feel like Africans have not cared either way. But I think that African Americans almost want it to be like, I must beg you back, or I don't want you. How do I put it? We still trying to live our lives on the continent, right? But I think African Americans want us to say, okay, come back. But nobody's stopping you. You don't need me to say it. You can come. And it has always been that way. Like the door has always been open.
And even I've seen posts. There's this one real estate development company in Ghana that's always posting like news about Ghana, and I've seen them specifically make that statement. Like we want African Americans to come to Ghana.
Yeah.
We welcome you. We'll even you know housing will be affordable. Everything. But I feel like there's something missing because to be like. This is a quote, and I don't want to quote the person wrong, but it's more so like to be African American is to be African without recollection and American without the respect.
I agree with
that. To be in that messy middle, you don't know if you're welcomed in either, and then also you don't know if you even want to make that jump because you already are comfortable with not being, being a stepchild in one place, but you don't know if you'll be a stepchild moving miles away.
I hear what you're saying and I receive it. And what I want to say is recognize that is a feeling that has come from yourself.
Right, exactly.
It's not something that we put onto you. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So you guys,
go ahead.
I have had encounters where some of my friends are about to marry into African families and they sit around and they go, has anyone in your family ever been sold? Okay, and they ask that question. So this is real. I'm a reality kind of person. And classism is real in every culture, even in Africa.
Yeah, but even in African
culture. Yeah.
No, definitely.
Especially in Atlanta, right?
It's true,
yeah.
Right? And I don't want us to get to where it's like, hey, African American, African, because that's exactly what happens. But one thing I have, and it happens in every single culture. But the one thing is that they're not incentivizing like to come back home.
Right.
Like, meaning you could just come back home. Like even my Hispanics, doesn't matter if they're Honduras, Mexican, Guatemalteco, no matter what, when they're working with me, they're going to say, whether they know each other or not, whether they know what tribe they're from, they're going to say, hey, help her right now. We just make it such a divide sometimes. Like, why does it matter if I'm sold? Well, I look like you. Like, you know what I mean?
And I feel like that's like an outlier, right? It's like, I don't feel like that.
Because that's not a general conversation. I'm not going to lie to you.
You know what I mean? I mean,
here's the thing. Everybody who has had an issue with an African person, every story is different. But I can also tell you that it wasn't just one person who called me an African booty scratcher.
Correct.
I could tell you that it was multiple people across multiple environments. But I'm not holding that against them. And I don't want this to feel like I blame this side or that side.
Right.
And I also know that I cannot speak for all Africans as a whole, which I feel like when I'm in African American circles happens more frequently than when I'm in African circles, them asking me about what it is to be African American.
Got it.
But you are welcome to come home. We also don't have to give you that permission. Because if it's your home, you're welcome there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I just heard my friends, my Nigerian friends say, don't go unless I go with you.
Well, don't go to Nigeria because you don't want to get robbed, but that is a different sentiment.
I understand.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
By all means,
so many different
back
places.
home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's like somebody you don't have to go to Nigeria and tell them you're welcome in Detroit. Like, but also don't go to Detroit if you ain't got no guides. I mean, like you can just
I get you.
Like I feel like
listening.
It's not
don't
their,
get dropped off in the bluff. Like you're not gonna let them get dropped off in the bluff.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like their responsibility. And like Arshel said, and I agree, is like we have to have that will in ourselves to just have that self-determination. Like we've had self-determination and resiliency throughout the entire American struggle of from slaves to civil rights and everything. Take that same self-determination and be like, I want to go experience what the other side looks like for myself, just because. And I understand if like individually we can't get there, but I feel like as African Americans, it's also our responsibility to create an environment and culture. I'll take it back to this because Lon is my wife. Okay. She's Jewish as well. Like her grandmother raised them Jewish. and they have a birthrights trip where
They
like
do. It is
they
real
are like their birthright is to have a trip to Israel and to be able to stay there. I think she was there for like 10 days.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the organization that puts that together, but who's to say an African American can't start an organization like that for the birthright of African Americans to go to Africa,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So,
but I can tell you, economically, Africans are probably not going to be able to do that for you. And I almost feel like that is what African Americans want Africans to do, is like really make the way very easy. But how can I make the way easy for you if it's not easy for me?
They still getting robbed of resources from other countries, just like I feel like the difference is America.
We're not. We are having rich conversations.
We are, because it's all about resources, right? And like though Africa is like the most resource dense,
I just feel like we have enough.
We do, but it's being taken.
our resources are for sale, right? Our resources here are for sale. The resources there are for taking.
That's why I love our show. Like she came,
solid.
she was smart, meaning she's smart enough to take herself out of that environment, understanding that she loves Liberia. Like I love Liberia and I've never even been there.
Yeah.
But she knows like I cannot scale and capitalize and even give back while we're literally getting robbed every 5 to 10 years in war. You know, and she came here and now she is able to take that American dollar back. But like, I wish there was more.
Well, here's my thing.
And taking that dream, like you literally clothe us in our native clothing.
Yes.
You bring us, you bring it not just to the Liberians. You're like, hey,
I want everybody.
And not like that, but that's why I said the trade. You know, like I think that you're bringing it back. I really think you're bringing it back.
I want to welcome everybody.
That's what I feel like. You're bringing it back.
I want to welcome everybody. I really do. Because, in large part, because I remember how I was made to feel when I was little.
Yeah.
Oh, people will, look, Black kids will remind you that you're not exactly like them. They'll look in your kitchen pot. Like one of my favorite Liberian dishes is called cassava leaf. And this girl was like, that looks like somebody cooked marijuana. Like, do you know what I mean? But I was like, if I start you off slow with like a dress and then like some jollof rice, then maybe one day when I have y'all over, it's more like, okay, I get it. Maybe it's not for you, but it's like, okay, I get it. And when I have kids, if I have kids, then their friends will not be so like quick to judge.
Yeah.
What we're doing now is educating each other.
Yeah.
And inviting each other into each other's homes, you know?
Right.
But I want everybody to take a trip back to West Africa. I love when people say, oh, I went to Ghana. You know what I mean? Because it's one of my favorite places in the world to go, you know? And go there and go with an open mind and don't be like, how can I help save the poor Africans? Just go experience because we're doing fine. The best thing that can happen is for us to really
actually go over there
like
and
to vibe with each other,
vibe.
Collaborate with each other, and then that opens better opportunities than just us trying to like save one another.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? So I just want us to
having
shift into that mindset where we have so much that we can offer each other.
This is the truth.
Yeah.
Me and one of my girlfriends were just saying this because we had another kid and she was just going through a mental time and she had to bring me back and she said, you want to know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get this kid to the next level. She said, because I can use what I have to get her there. We're not going to go save her. Right? A lot of times we can save ourselves. You're on it. You're on it. A little piece of the pie at a time.
Yeah, we can just collaborate our way.
And it's this girl that made a job for herself. That
That's
came
all I
over
did,
here.
I'm trying to make a company, but so far I've just made a job. And so that's really the
bigger
difference.
Waves than what you think.
Thank you. That is the difference though between a $1 million company and like a $20 million company.
Right.
It's like, did you just create a job for yourself or did you build a company?
And that is the difference. And a lot of us, so many more of us than we know, find ourselves in that the former than the latter of creating jobs for ourselves. Right. And identifying what it takes to transition from self-employed to business owner.
Yes.
You've essentially made yourself a nonprofit connecting women from here to Liberia. Yeah. And you sat there and you started it, raising capital. I'm excited for people to see this episode.
We did the Kickstarter thing when Kickstarter was cool. Like when Kickstarter was like, oh, you know, okay, wow. Did you hear about when there weren't as many people who'd raised like 6 figures on Kickstarter. You know what I mean? We did it back then. And but now it's like I'm really trying to, we have our store. We're opening a waist bead only location at Lenox for the summertime. And from there, I'm hoping that I can start to use those financials to pursue some funding. Like, I want to scale quickly, because if I don't, somebody else is going to meet my same connects for waist beads in Ghana and start their own and like brand it. And 20 years from now, they'll be everywhere. And all I had to do is be diligent and scale fast. You know?
You want to know something?
Go ahead.
You can't buy experience. And when
You're
you
right.
just said what you said, that's what I was hoping that you heard.
Yeah.
Was your true journey and
You're right.
the connection that you've made to the
You're right.
American, African woman, white woman,
Yeah, all of
Indian
them.
woman, Asian
You're
woman.
right.
Literally, you have brought richness back to Liberia. And that's more so what I would want to invest in. I want to
No, you're
invest in
absolutely
the real woman.
You're right.
Not somebody that came and took your story.
Yeah.
You're really the story.
No, you're right about
So,
that.
yeah.
Because it's like, for me
You're
to say
really the
that if
story.
I don't do this fast, somebody else will do it, that really discounts all the stuff that I've
That you
done to
built.
get here.
And
You're
no
absolutely
one
right.
can do what you doing the way you doing
You
it
doing
anyway.
That's so true. That's
'Cause
so
you
true.
was the
They
one
can
that's meant to
fake
do it.
all they want,
No,
but
you're
it will
absolutely
crash and burn. So you have faith in what you've built.
You're absolutely
and
right.
what God has allowed you to build and stuff is all this time. You are amazing.
You're
You're
absolutely right.
in
That's very
Ponce. You're a trailblazer.
Yeah.
You've
Thank
sat
you.
there and you've seen things when people couldn't see it. Timing is everything in business. I just said it on the last post that I made, and you actually took advantage of it.
You're right.
Thank you for sharing that here.
You know
with us.
something, I was talking to, okay, this second location, right? I started the conversations beginning of March. We're at the end of March. We're signing, like we're set. I have been so caught up in like feelings of fear around it. And a friend of mine told me the other day on the phone when I was about to go home to my mom and cry and like, I know I have to take this step, but I'm scared and I'm nervous and whatever. And she was like, honestly, your feelings of fear are very unfounded because everything that you've done has worked, And so it's like, you wanted to open your first store. You opened the store. That was a scary thing because it exposed people to like my creative thought process and mind.
Yes.
And like, these are my designs. What if you hate them? Then it's like you wanted to open the factory. You did the factory. Then you opened this big store at this bigger platform that's doing, significant 6-figure numbers, right? And so every step has been successful. So why do you feel like now you're about to take a step that's just not going to be successful? Like,
It shows you just how human you are. And that's the humbling,
It is.
beautiful part of life.
thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
So would
You going up, girl.
Thank you.
That's what it looks like.
Thank you.
and I feel like, man, these episodes are starting to not be long enough to have the full depth conversation. But I feel like there will be, if you have some other opportunities for you to get back on and us to dive deeper.
I would love to.
'Cause it's so
I'll come with my hair
compartmentalized.
done.
Okay.
There's
Well,
really nowhere to go but up from
yeah,
here.
yeah. We welcome you as you are, though. The conversation
thank
has been great. But as we're wrapping it up, Arshel, I do want to get your what would you tell that person that's going through this journey similar to you have to pick up a business from one place, taking it to another? Like, talk about the fears you were having when you made the decision to transfer to Atlanta. Talk about some of the things that you had to do, some of the things you probably would have done differently.
Yeah.
Now looking back, because I'm sure that there are people that are even in smaller, like trying to take a business from California to Georgia.
Yeah. Well, definitely it was like if nothing was going to change, then nothing was going to change. So if I didn't change location or I wanted something different, and so I had to take a step and pursue something different. So I remember January 2020, like I was in Liberia. I love to start the year off in Liberia because I'm like, this is the land where my ancestors came back and said, we're going to create our legacy here.
Wow.
And so I always like to stay on the water and like just kind of channel that, okay, some real pioneers were here. So whatever it is that I'm trying to do, people have done significantly harder, So I wrote down on my
Staying
board.
grounded.
Yeah. Okay. I wrote down on my board, Pawn City Market 2020. Right. And so this in my mind was like the biggest goal that I could have had. And so I came back in mid-February and I started giving, gift bags to different people and trying to have those conversations. And I really just built a network of the different management and store owners and people at Ponce, and then ended up opening there by October. So I know that it's like when you say it really is just the who, not the how. Because I didn't know how I would be able to sell at Ponce, but I just knew that was the goal, right? And I thought I would put one dress and maybe some earrings in a store on the second floor. And now I've been able to create this whole environment in my own space. So you just really never know how those desires are going to manifest themselves. You just kind of have to set that intention and just kind of keep working at it. I can't roadmap. That's why I'm not like a business plan girl. I don't know how these things are going to happen.
Yeah.
But you just kind of pursue them, even if the ways seem weird.
Yeah.
And out of order. You just kind of keep going.
So with that said, like you said, the who and not the how.
Yeah.
Bringing up your new summer venture.
Yeah.
For Waist Beats, I think is really cool. Who's your target audience for that?
I am excited to see basically all women, African-American women, or any women actually in the States. I feel like American women in general are way more self-conscious than African women are. So every day that I work, I'm always listening to a woman say, oh, well, my body, I can't do waist beads, but I don't have the body for those. No, my waist. I never heard women talk so bad about themselves until I moved back.
I understand.
And that's something that really has to be healed, Yeah. And so I'm very excited.
Because we're the nurturer.
Yeah.
We're
And why this body, you're talking bad about this body that carried you through COVID, that has kept you woke up and it decided to move today. Like there's nothing.
You birthed our children.
You've done, you ate food and your body accepted it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like anything. So why are we talking so bad about these bodies?
Okay.
And so I'm excited to try to encourage some body positivity through the waist beads, because like I'm wearing grief waist beads now. I wear 2. They're just for me. It's not for everybody to show unless you want it to be.
Understood. And
so I'm really excited to try to encourage women to love to just adorn their bodies and hopefully help them stop talking so bad about them.
Wow.
Bring some good energy, carry that good energy with them. Because everything that people feel about a crystal, I think waist beads are very special because a crystal, maybe you have to sit it at home, but these you can wear with you
everywhere, right?
all the time.
Got it.
So I'm really excited about opening at Lenox and hopefully getting women to see their bodies in a more positive way.
And when did you say it's gonna launch?
May.
Okay. Yes. May 2024. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Already it's right on the horizon.
And you also you have a new store. Is that also
That's
when
the
new
new
store
location.
drop?
That's the new location is Lenox. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So we're gonna be filming some building bombshell around opening this new store. It's just a cart, but it's a new location.
And it's seasonal, you said, right?
For now, it's we're gonna be open for 6 months, and then we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
But this needs to be it. I think this is the way that I can like really grow, scale something sustainable, and then we'll keep the flagship store so that the women can continue to sew clothing in Liberia.
Yeah.
And get people in African clothing. Yeah. But the waist beads is my plan.
You get
to
it.
be nationwide.
You understand about feelings now.
Thank you.
You understand about feelings and making people feel good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be great also. I would love to patronize it.
Oh, yeah. Come get some beads.
I see you.
Thank you.
I see you're pivoting.
Thank you.
I love your rawness today coming in your hat.
Thank you.
And your beautiful clothing. And I just want to ask you one more question.
Yes.
In this time of pivoting, how would you tell our audience that you hold it all together mentally?
Good question.
I mean, you've been in several different environments.
Right.
You're doing a lot. Yeah.
Right. You know what's so interesting too? And as I like start to do my like small business coaching and stuff, one thing I always say I'm really good at is the pivot, because I just get I've had to pivot so many times for instability reasons, and not just like me as an individual, but like my country, in order to be stable, I just feel like you have to pivot. I think the most important thing to remember about a pivot is that you are of the earth. And so you should feel, that's your time to feel the most connected. That's your time to get the most grounded. I think a lot of times when we have to pivot, we panic. But in truth, it's because we're not connecting to what's around us enough. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
exactly.
So really, when it comes to the pivot, like, you'll be fine as long as you connect to your purpose. And I know that may sound a little rah and like whatever, but it's like really actually like slow down.
Yep.
Pay attention to what's around you. For years, I had been praying to God, like, give me a sign. What's my product? What's my thing that's going to be my Shark Tank product? What is my, I've been praying for years and years. I've had that store for 3.5 years. Last year I did my numbers. 1/5 of our sales were waist speeds. So my pivot has been in front of my face the whole time.
It's all right.
And the only way I was able to pay attention to that was by getting grounded. Looking at what was in front of me. Not trying to look so far into space and see, what is this thing I haven't thought of? You've probably already thought of whatever you need. So just get grounded, get centered, and make that the best thing you can make it.
It's so I love to hear that too, by the way. And it's so funny. I was smiling because, Jazz, I don't know if you remember when we had that first episode we had you on off camera, I was saying how I feel like most people are whales because they live in the water, but they're not of the water. And when you say that you want people to remember that they're of the earth, it's like, that's what I was speaking of. Like, we got to remember like where we really come from and just stay in our lane, not necessarily trying to live this life or like just go against the natural order of things. Right. So I love that advice.
This also could bring us back to the conversation about Africa. You are of Africa. I don't need to invite you to where you are of, like where you are from. That is your home. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
And so even I think as we slow down too, it's like, why do people feel so called and moved to want to go back? Because it's home, because it's up, because it's in you.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? And so I just think that the best ideas, the best decisions, the best changes are born when we slow down and just absorb those things that are already part of us. Stop trying to avoid them.
You have everything you need.
Yeah. Just feel it.
Man, I feel like we got to get you back. Like, this is a great conversation.
This is pleasant.
Good, I'm glad.
Arsha, I would love for you to just tell our listeners a little bit more about, where they can find you, where they can find like the content about like the day in the life, with your family. We didn't even get a chance to talk about how your family is involved in it.
But it's okay because this tells you guys.
It's the preface. It's the preface.
Thanks.
But tell them where they can find you.
So I'm on Instagram. At It's Our Shell, and my show Building Bombshell is on there, and that's so fun. So I really hope you guys watch it. We're trying to figure out how to get it reformatted for YouTube, so it will happen soon. And then what else? We're at Ponce right now.
Sounds like you need to talk to Kai.
We'll be at Lennox, and we're in Liberia, and everybody's welcome. I recommend you stop in somewhere else first because Liberia is a little poor. I like to give people a little,
disclaimer. But if we come to Liberia,
by all means, you will be welcome.
Check you out.
Come, you'll be so welcome. And we have, I'm here. I'm a girl with a bunch of sisters, so I'm just always ready to say hello to anybody and include anybody, and yeah. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Tap in and I'll tap back.
Tap in and she'll tap back, man. I like that. I'm gonna start saying that. Tap in and we'll tap back.
Yeah.
Speaking of tap in, like what we really appreciate is y'all giving us feedback. What did you like about this episode? If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with a friend, family member. And man, I'm even curious about what would it look like to get like an MDM meetup or MDM retreat with our fans. In Accra or Liberia or like somewhere, right? Let's make that a trip. Let's make that a trip.
It could be a trip for sure.
I've been planning that. I really see that for myself. So now I'm thinking like, what would that look like for all of us, right?
That would. That'd be pretty dope. Some of our best, some of our most interesting guests, and then we just go out there to Liberia with
Or
Michelle.
we could do a little pop up at Bombshell and
that's
have
what
some
I'm
people
saying.
here. We could do it here, and then we could do it let's take
Let's
it
do it.
worldwide.
Let's
That's
go.
the $1 million mind, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
it is.
Making it
That's right.
worldwide.
And it takes people to come together to create it. It's the millions, right?
Yeah.
You might think it's about money, but we put the value on that. So let's get us together and let's do that.
Yeah.
Man,
please.
speaking of Jazz, how you feeling about today's episode?
Man, I feel like it was right on time.
Right on time.
It's always right on time.
Great, because I was so late.
Nah,
appreciate that.
no, you were
Never
right.
late.
No,
Okay,
when I tell you,
time,
you was
baby.
right on time, Arshel. Like,
Never late. It's
funny
always on
story.
time.
Funny story. Me and Jazz looking for my phone for an hour
Oh, wow.
while we setting up. Whole time I had
It's
my
on a
phone propped up
fucking
on a
gimbal.
tripod that was recording us setting up.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So like that's just where my mind was at. So when
Okay.
you say you was late, you was right on time.
Okay.
Like timing is divine.
Amazing.
Timing is divine, and
Amazing.
you're right. And I'll tell this to everybody. It is true. We've heard it several times. Arshel is not lying. So if this is your first time tuning in, please understand. Never panic. Always get still. Take a step back and ground. As Arshel said, we were never meant to panic.
Yeah. No.
We were meant to walk in grace and grow in that. And usually it's somebody right there willing to encounter you in that same day, just
Amen.
like we did.
Yeah.
I was
amen.
having a crazy day. You
Yeah.
came in here and just made it so great.
I'm so glad.
She put her feet up. She had her hat on.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And she was ready just to be human.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it as well.
Thank
I
you
love
for
it.
being you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay.
joining us,
Thank you.
taking time out of your Saturday, Arshel.
you.
I know we had to, move some things around,
Yeah.
but you're here. I appreciate you.
Thank
And
you.
she showed up.
She showed up.
Like she said.
And she showed out. And I
That's
appreciate our listeners tuning in every single Monday for new
Yeah.
episodes. Like I said, smash that like button, comment, share, and subscribe if you are new to the channel. We love y'all. My name is Kai Speaks. You heard from Heavy House
House
Jazz
Jazz.
and Arshel. We out.